Welcome to another video installation guide from Advanced Sport Touring. Today we're going to be installing our touring peg kit. Before we begin this installation, we want to make it very clear that you do not want to remove the fairing to do this installation. We're removing it for demonstration purposes so that you can see where we're putting the brackets and where the bolts are going. As you can see, there are two blue arrows taped on the bike. Those are just to give you an approximate location for the two holes that we're going to be mounting to. So once I take the fairing off, it'll give you a point of reference. We're going to begin our installation on the clutch side of the bike, and the first thing we're going to do is remove the lower fairing bolt. We've gone ahead and removed the fairing for demonstration purposes only. The two locations we're going to be working with is your lower fairing bolt hole, and then there is a bolt right here. We're going to go ahead and remove this bolt at this time. You'll need an 8mm socket. This bolt will not be removed. You can go ahead and set it aside. The next step is to remove this fastener that holds your heat shield to the bracket. And the best way to do it is if you have a 4mm hex. There's a small button on the other side. Go ahead and press it in, and then the whole fastener will come out. The next step is to install this main bracket. You're going to need your 3/8 inch spacer. Place it on the top. Put your bolt through both. This will then fit into that hole that you just removed the bolt from. Take your 4mm hex and just hand tight. We're not even trying to snug it up at this time. 20mm bolt. It is very important that you use the washers included in the kit. So you need to have one washer like this. Once it goes through, on the other side, you're going to have a washer, which is going to be the most important washer in the kit. And then your nut will be on the back side of that. Keep in mind that because we removed the fairing for demonstration purposes, you can't see it when we're doing this part, but your fairing would be right here, and we would be going through the fairing and into this hole. Put your finger on the back side, and when you feel it starting to come through, take your washer and put that on. And put it through just a little bit more. Put your nut on the back. And there's not a lot of room to tighten this nut, so we're going to take advantage of every little bit we can. So if you have the nut on the back, this will still turn a little bit further, and it'll be snug with the fairing. And then take your 10mm wrench and you're going to tighten it. There's not, like I said, there's not a whole lot of room, so you're probably going to have to turn it, flip it, turn it, flip it, turn it until this is tight to the bike. Once that's tight, you're going to go ahead and go back and tighten up the other bolt. And that part of the installation is complete. The first step is going to be to remove this bolt. you're going to need a 5mm hex to do this. This bolt will not be reused. Set it aside. This is what it looks like with the fairing off. As a point of reference, this was the first blue arrow, and the second blue arrow is just on the other side here. What we're going to be doing is removing this fastener for the heat shield, and the way these work is they have a center section that if you have a 4mm hex, it fits perfectly. You just press in the center, and then the fastener will pull out. Just like so. So what we're going to do first is we're going to remove this bolt. This is an 8mm socket. It's a little easier if you have an extension. This bolt will not be reused. At this point, you're going to need the black bolt and the 5/16 spacer. Take your main brace, put the bolt through, put your spacer on top, put it into the hole, you're going to need a 4mm hex. When you're tightening the bolt, you're going to want to push upwards so that it seats into the threads. Now you're going to need a 20mm bolt and a 1/4" spacer. Put it through this. It's threaded, so you're going to start to turn it in. You're going to stop turning when you can feel it coming through the other side, because there's only so much distance between the engine and the bolt. Take another 1/4" washer, put it on the back of that nut, turn it a little bit so that it'll stay in place. Take a lock nut and put it onto the back of the bolt. Hold that into position and start turning the bolt. And it will get to a point where the nut will stop turning. That's because it's a lock nut with a nylon thread on it, which will keep it from backing out over time. Go ahead and tighten up the bolt. Take a 10mm opened end wrench. And the technique that works best is when you start turning, then flip it, flip it, turn it, because there's only so much room. And you're going to do this until it's tight. Now you can reinstall the heat shield. And that is the main brace for the brake side. Now we're going to attach our foot peg assembly to the support. Included in your kit is a small pin which fits into here, and this is going to be a pivot point for your foot peg. You have that hole in the center, it's going to fit, and that's what allows it a nice smooth motion. Next, you'll see inside of those two slots, the back of the foot peg has two threaded holes. Take two of your 20mm bolts and two of your 6mm washers. Put one washer on each bolt. Put it into the slot and into the back of that hole. 4mm hex. It's easier to guide it into the hole if you use your tool. I'm not going to tighten it. I'm just going to get it a little bit snug. So this is going to be your movement that either moves the foot peg towards the rider or away from the rider. I like to have mine angled towards me, so that's where we're going to put it. You can go ahead and tighten up these bolts. This is going to then attach to the main brackets. Now we're going to attach the foot peg support assembly that you just put together to the main braces that we put on earlier. Keep in mind we have a custom exhaust, so yours isn't going to look like this, but your support braces will be in exactly the same spot. You're going to need two 16mm bolts and two 1/4 inch washers. Put a washer on each bolt. You'll see that there's a series of holes, and then the bottom of your bracket has two slots, so you can adjust the depth and you can adjust the angle. And these holes allow you to choose how close or far away it is from your foot. At this point, you just want these hand tight. You don't want them super tight because we're going to be putting on the retention system, and that will require that we are able to move this bracket just a little bit. Now we're going to assemble your retention system. What this does is it prevents the foot peg from moving when you press forward on it. These are the individual components. This is what it looks like fully assembled. So the first thing we're going to do is you'll see this cylinder is threaded in the center. You have two of these eyelets. Thread one in each side. We don't know how far we're going to thread it in until we actually put it on the bike. Then you have two different size spacers. You have a small one and you have a larger one. You have a larger bolt and a smaller bolt. To attach the retention system, just like we assembled it before, we have the two eyelets, the threaded spacer, we have the short bolt with the short spacer, long bolt with the long spacer. The short spacer and the short bolt attached to the hole that's in the bottom of the support. Go ahead and screw that in a few threads, and then the other bolt attaches to any of these holes. You'll see that we're close, but we're not quite there. So we want to tighten it up. And then try and put the bolt in. And then once you get that in, you can push forward on your foot peg and it'll seat into the final position. At this point, tighten up the rest of your bolts. And the retention system install is complete. Here's what it looks like from a little further away. Your foot peg, the support, main brace, retention system. It's very sturdy. It's not going to move once you put the retention system on.